There's approximately 8.2 billion people living on this planet currently. In a sea of souls, it's kind of hard to feel like you're unique. That's where communities come in, allowing people to join with like-minded individuals and share an identity together. The downside, though, is that groupthink is a very real thing, very influential, and you just may find yourself in a group of people who are less than decent and want nothing more than to strip you of your dignity, money, and everyone you used to hold dear. Sounds like I'm describing a cult, right? Well, I'm not. Well, maybe. Maybe. It honestly maybe. What I am talking about, though, is the manosphere. If you've heard of it, you are probably rolling your eyes right now, and if not, I am so dearly sorry for what I'm about to tell you in this video. I promise I had nothing to do with this. Actually, it's your fault for being chronically offline. Yeah, sorry about that. I spent weeks researching this topic, and some of the extra testosterone has not left my system. I'm kidding, of course, because the whole thing is one big joke. A scam, a ploy for control, even. Most people involved in the manosphere aren't running the show. They are just followers. It's actually the people who first spread the whole misogynistic alpha, beta, zeta, weta, whatever male slogans that orchestrate the entire thing. And today I'm going to be pulling back the curtains and explaining exactly what the manosphere is, how it functions, and how you or someone you know can start poking some holes in the rhetoric in order to overcome its pull. Let's get started. So what exactly happened here? How did we get to this very weird point in time? Technically, it was caused by feminism. To be exact, though, it was men's reaction to second-wave feminism. From the 1960s and 70s, feminism started gaining relevance for the first time since the women's suffrage movement over 40 years prior. This time, the goal is for equality both socially and politically. This is the time period where laws for equal pay, abortion rights, marriage rights, and others were first established. However, this drastic change in the norm did not sit right with some Americans, mainly men. A new movement formed during this period called the Men's Liberation Movement. At first, this group was mainly focused on issues such as military conscription, divorce, and custody laws. However, as second-wave feminism ramped up in the 70s, a new breed of the Men's Liberation Movement started linking the problems they faced directly to feminism, creating the first men's rights activists. The dawn of the digital era meant that a lot of the ideology of the men's rights activists could live forever and spread to other people across state lines and generations. In 2009, the term manosphere first appeared in a Blogspot blog talking about the loose network of blogs, forums, and websites dedicated to men's issues. The term was later popularized in 2013 by Ian Ironwood, who's a pornography marketer who published The Manosphere, A New Hope for Masculinity, and soon it was adopted by MRAs and the journalists talking about the manosphere. I honestly had no clue where the word manosphere came from before this project, and now that I know, it makes so much sense. Like, it is fitting. Anyways, the manosphere was born and has since received a lot of media attention for extreme misogyny and association with high-profile events such as school shooting.
We can now confirm for you that according to preliminary reports, there are 10 who are dead.
Online harassment campaigns.
Violent threats for pointing out sexism in video games.
And really bad killers.
In his rambling manifesto, Roger explained he wanted revenge for all the pretty girls who never showed him any attention.
Now, being such a vast network of interconnected communities means a lot of beliefs get thrown around, but thankfully the manosphere actually makes it pretty easy to tell them all apart. For starters, you have the men's rights activists who still rally for the same narrative 50 plus years later. Then there's the men going their own way movement who go further and support completely abandoning women and sometimes even Western society. Then you have the pickup artists who share techniques, strategies, and mindsets that will help men attract women, usually through objectification and harassment techniques like negging. Remember the term negging for later. You also have incels, or the involuntary celibates, which is composed of mostly young men that share strong feelings of rejection and rage towards women for rejecting them. The most common groups, though, are the insert Greek letter here, males. You know, the alphas, betas, sigmas, and zetas. Deriving from the common example of wolf pack behaviors, these types of men are obsessed with social status and competition against other men in the hierarchy. Alphas are at the top of the hierarchy due to greater access to power, money, and women. Their whole brand is to gain favor through physical prowess to intimidate and dominate others in order to remain a real man. Women to them are irrational and hypergamous, which means they only date up to higher social classes, but they are hardwired to alphas and need to be dominated. Betas are below alphas in every way, according to alphas. They are weak, submissive, and subordinate with little to no status. The only way a beta could ever get a woman is if a woman decides to settle down with a quote-unquote nice guy. I'm gonna hurl. Sigmas reject the hierarchy altogether and set out on their own path without requiring much of the physical realm, such as designer clothes or large friend groups. They constantly put themselves above alphas, though, in terms of who is better at getting women. And then you have the Zetas. Supposedly, these guys were sociosexual, which means zero emotional commitment to women, just hookups. From the sound of it, though, I don't think the name stuck all too well because the only source of it I could find was from 2019. Who knows, I could be wrong, but I really did not want to dip my toes into a subreddit to find out because that is a fate worse than death. With all these different groups, it's shocking to know that the manosphere as a whole actually has a set of unifying beliefs that tie them together in the cyberspace. To them, masculinity is under attack by feminine forces, which are hypocritical, oppressive, and putting men at a disadvantage. They believe jobs for men are harder to find now, male criminals do more time than women, colleges enroll women over men, and all domestic violence cases are biased. Hey, Manosphere, that last bit does not help your argument as much as you think it does. Like, you're bringing that up. No one else is. Sounds a little bit like a self-report. You might want to reconsider your talking points for the future. Overall, feminism is a violation of the natural order of things, and the world as a whole is genocentric, which means biased towards women. They even adopted a term for the awakening to this issue, red pill. Originating from the 1999 film The Matrix, it is a metaphor for something that causes someone to become aware of and recognize the truth of a situation. To the manosphere, that fact is that women are vain and dumb. So how does someone get sucked into the manosphere exactly? Simple, social media. Like most things these days. The majority of the manosphere lives on the internet. All it takes is looking at one thread or video for the right amount of time to start getting inundated with similar manosphere content. That's why I refuse to step into a subreddit. The most likely candidates, though, are the ones who are typically more passive in their lives, down on their luck, or confused with who they are and where they want to be in life. Then the manosphere just swoops in and delivers solutions in the forms of boot camps and online courses.
You do not have to accept her rejection.
Now, I don't want to get too judgy because I don't know where everyone watching stands in their mindsets, but if you are watching this video and think everything I've said to this point sounds appealing and misunderstood, allow me to do a bit of debunking for you because clearly some people are only telling you half the story. First off, remember when I mentioned how alphas base their role in society off of wolf packs? Well, that whole concept of alpha males come from a series of papers from 1944 to 1977 on the social hierarchies in wolf packs. What they reported is that one pair of wolves, the alpha male and the alpha female, would take control of the entire group and constantly fight to maintain that control in order for the pack to function. Here's the issue, though. That study was not done in the wild like most people assume. L. David Meck, one of those researchers, wrote another paper in 1999 rescinding his previous research on wolves and points out the flaws of the other papers with more accurate data. They studied on wolves in captivity, and the captive packs that they studied were usually composed on an assortment of wolves from various habitats. Since the wolves were unfamiliar with each other, dominance hierarchies formed, as do most species when thrown together in captivity, even humans. Apparently, wolves are actually really hard to study in the wild, so the only way people at the time could get anything on them was to force them into one place to make an artificial pack. In the wild, though, that does not happen at all. Natural wolf packs are families with a breeding pair and their offspring from the previous 1 to 3 years. Sometimes it's even groups of families, say like 2 to 3 groups. So the idea of alpha males is completely false. If you want to be like a wolf leader in nature, you're basically aspiring to be a dad. Attempting to apply behavior of unrelated captive wolves to the family structures of wild packs is a nonsense comparison. That's like trying to study human family dynamics at a state penitentiary. It's not remotely the same. But even if you want to ignore the very origins of alpha dominance, dominance in general isn't even effective in the one thing that's on the tip of the tongues of every guy in the manosphere: women. In 1999, a lot of stuff really happened in this field of study in 1999, yet all but the Matrix quotes was ignored by the manosphere. Interesting. I wonder what that could possibly mean. Anyways, in 1999, a study by Jerry M. Berger and Micah Cosby tested whether or not women actually prefer dominant men. Studies like this were conducted before, but according to Berger and Cosby, they were missing a very important element of the research: the control group. So these guys basically redid one of the previous tests, but this time they added a control group. The researchers had 118 female undergraduates read the description of a tennis player named John, but with variation on his description. The control group only read the first 3 sentences, as so: John is 5 foot 10 inches tall, 165 pounds. He has been playing tennis for 1 year and is currently enrolled in an intermediate tennis class. Despite his limited amount of training, he is a very good coordinated tennis player who has won 60% of his matches. The other 2 groups got to read the rest of his description, but they either had a more dominant version of John or a non-dominant one. Like previously studied, the majority of the women tested found the dominant description of John more sexually appealing than the submissive one. However, overall, it was the control group that had the highest rating of sexiness. So how did that happen? I mean, the test was not on his merit as a tennis player, it was on if he's dominant or not. Well, that's because a simple black and white dimension does not tell you much when it comes to predicting what people find hot. Berger and Cosby dove into this further with the second part of their research. They told each group of women that John had recently got a personality test. The dominant group was told his traits were aggressive, assertive, confident, demanding, and dominant. The non-dominant group was told that his traits were easygoing, quiet, sensitive, shy, and submissive. The control group was told nothing more than he got a personality test. Must have been a real fun day for that group, huh? Hey, this is John. He's good at tennis, and he got a personality test. Okay, bye. Afterwards, the women of the dominant and non-dominant groups were asked to say which adjectives used to describe John were ideal for them in both a short-term and long-term romantic relationship. In the dominant group, only 1 woman out of the 50 assigned to that group found dominant as an ideal trait in the partner. The real winner of that group was confident, with an average of 75% of the women picking it for both short and long-term relationships, and assertive, with an average of 42% of women picking it. Not a single woman in that group voted for demanding, and only 12% actually picked aggressive. For the non-dominant group, the winners were easygoing, with an average of 66% of women picking it, and sensitive, with exactly 75% of women across the board picking it. The big loser of that group was submissive, with 0 picks. In summary, certain dominant traits were favored over others, and the same goes for non-dominant traits. A 2-dimensional descriptor, such as dominant and non-dominant, is not telling the whole story of what women actually want in a guy. If they even like guys to begin with, because, 2025. Guys are actually better off combining dominant traits like assertive and non-dominant traits like sensitivity for better results in the dating scene. But I'm not a love guru. I'm just reading off what I looked up on the internet, which sounds bad. I did actual research. I used Google Scholar. There was another study that further debunked dominance and states that people should actually aspire for a different descriptor: prestigious. In 2010, a study by these very smart people tackled the evolutionary advantage of both dominance and prestige in society. Their research found that dominance was best fitted as a short-term strategy for success, while prestige was best for a long-term strategy. Which makes sense too in a less scientific way. If you get a new job, you may want to show early on that you are willing to do what you can to get to the top of the ranks and be a responsible person in the company. Once you're there though, you have nothing to really prove anymore, and you're better off trying to maintain your already high status. That's essentially the difference between dominance and prestige. Prestigious people are also more likely to have lower levels of aggression and distress, and higher levels of genuine self-esteem, social acceptance, and agreeableness. That already sounds way better than dominance, which got lower levels in all things related to prestige, and ranked higher in narcissism, aggression, disagreeableness, and undependability. Based on the findings of these folk, the ideal male partner is one that is assertive, confident, easygoing, and sensitive without being aggressive, demanding, and dominant. I could debunk these claims all day, every day, but that still wouldn't stop the manosphere from growing, and that is thanks to some truly heinous masterminds still being very hands-on with getting more people to buy into their views. The influencers of the manosphere. I have a few that I want to bring to the discussion today as prime examples of the types of influencers running around the manosphere. So first up, we have Andy Elliott. Mr. Elliott is an Arizona sales trainer and a car salesman who got some publicity after claiming he won't hire anyone who does not have six-pack abs. Elliott goes on record to say, quote, "If you get hired in our company, you got a certain amount of time to get your body in shape, or it just shows me you don't care." He also stated that I could just grab any of my people, and before a meeting, I can say, "All right, shirts off, look around. Who's the most disciplined one in the room?" The HR department at his business must be working overtime daily, if they even exist. Mr. Elliott also runs the Elliott Group, which offers online courses to spread his wisdom to others. The courses include a Inner Circle mentorship, which claims to help people earn up to 9 figures a year, which is billions of dollars, by the way. To access this amazing deal, you just need to pay a one-time membership fee of $1,500 and then $499 per month afterwards. I've stated countless times that I am not a math guy at all, but if you can easily shell out $499 a month, I don't think you need to take this kind of class. Like, you're already well enough off. Do not pay this guy anything. Sorry, but I just couldn't help myself. That's a lot of money to just throw willy-nilly, and I think Mr. Elliott knows that. The whole point of this is to get the big fish who are truly desperate and have a lot of money to spend. Secondly, we have Wes Watson. Mr. Watson is a fitness coach and motivational speaker. I'm saying that with the heaviest of quotes because I've listened to him speaking and my ears bled.
Jesus Christ,
Because
look
I've been
at
to
you,
prison?
bro. You got 10-inch arms and tits. Men don't have tits.
Mr. Watson has a prior conviction in which he faced 10 years in prison for robbery, burglary, assault, and battery. 18 months after being released, Mr. Watson started posting about his new luxury lifestyle and giving tips on how to be a real man and get a life like his. Kinda weird the guy sentenced to 10 years in prison for robbery and burglary was able to get so successful so quickly after being released. Anyways, he recently got arrested again this past February. The story is that Mr. Watson made a habit of challenging other fitness-related influencers to fight via social media. One of these guys actually took Wes up on the challenge and went to confront him in a gym in Florida. But rather than a one-on-one duel, Mr. Watson and his crew severely beat the man, some of them wielding dumbbells and weight belts. The victim also got multiple soccer kicks to the head, even from Mr. Watson after the fight was over. Allegedly, he's now looking at a 3 to 5 year sentence in prison, but that's all still speculative for now. And to end our lineup with a bang, the one you probably expected to see at some point, Mr. Andrew Tate. Raised on an estate in Luton, England, he became a professional kickboxer, even got on the UK version of the reality TV show Big Brother. Unfortunately, he was kicked off over footage of him hitting a female contestant with a belt was released. Later on, he would make an appearance on InfoWars, the podcast created and run by the infamous conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, the same guy who claimed the parents of Sandy Hook victims were faking everything. He also has been seen interacting with other far-right influencers and even met with Donald Trump, openly stating his support for him and the MAGA movement on Twitter. So Mr. Tate has a long history of being in the public eye, and he isn't really hiding his point of views either. Mr. Tate is most famous for his viral rants about male dominance, female submission, achieving insane amounts of wealth, and advocating violence towards women.
It's bang out the machete, boom in her face, and grip her up by the neck. What's up?
Now he has tons of fan accounts still active and posting on his behalf just because he is literally worshipped. His ideas have taken roots in young men across the globe who see him as a genuine role model, and now whole media spaces are dedicated to his ideology. His supporters say his straight-talking style is a remedy to cancel culture, while everyone else criticizes his ideas as the reason hate speech and misogyny are growing online. He and his brother run numerous businesses, including ones where they pose themselves as self-help gurus for success in life. Their sites are full of very harsh statements, with one of them from the War Room saying, quote, "I want you to understand something. None of you reading this are ready for the War Room. None of you reading this will truly revolutionize what we have inside. If you had that capability, we'd already know who you are. So remember when I asked you to keep in mind the term negging? Yeah, the manosphere not only teaches people to neg women, they're also being negged themselves. Anyways, Mr. Tate has recently gotten even more attention due to his arrest in Romania from a very long human trafficking investigation. The Tate brothers and fellow defendants were accused of luring 7 women to his property in Romania starting in 2021. They allegedly made false promises of romantic relationships with these women in order to gain control over them. After entering their sphere of influence, the women accused them of sexually exploiting them and forcing them to make pornographic content, along with other very unsettling claims that I will not be repeating here. Apparently, these are not just isolated to Romania, as these also span to the United States and UK as well. These are just some examples of manosphere influencers. And I'm gonna be direct with you viewers, I'm gonna not tell a lie here. These are not good people. These are bad men who want to hurt people and defraud you. Plain and simple. So how have all these men been able to even get support in the first place? Men go to the manosphere because they are unhappy in some way and are searching for answers and/or a sense of belonging. This is specifically true for younger men, teens, and boys trying to get a foothold in life. Social media has not helped at all and has led to a decline of in-person social skills, especially around the middle school age, which apparently is one of the most important developmental times. Because of this, these young boys are desperate for any guidance on interacting with other guys, and the manosphere is more than happy to supply their own personal insight. Not enough is being done to help these young boys down the right path of mental and emotional development. Even growing up does not make them safe from the manosphere's influence. Men have a much higher suicide rate and early death rate than women do, and depression and anxiety in men is usually ignored by both the men and the people around them. With these factors at play, the influencers of the manosphere are able to slide in and offer an answer. Red pill or blue pill. Then their prejudice gets reinforced, or they get reprogrammed to hate women and anyone who criticizes them, because those people weren't there when they needed them. The ideas of the manosphere aren't new. Hell, we still have abolitionists and Nazis in 2025. The problem is a lack of mental health care for everybody, including men. Now these guys are more likely to pay $18,000 on a 3-day militia boot camp than insurance that can help pay for bi-weekly therapy sessions. But all is not lost. Surprisingly, there are now programs that exist to help men, particularly the younger ones, learn how to better understand and even avoid the kinds of hateful internet communities they may come across. One such program, Diverting Hate, comes from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, Equity, and Justice in Vermont. They built a database with terms that are regularly used in the manosphere, and they use those to create targeted ads that work to redirect men to more pro-social organizations and positive representations of masculinity. It's like when your phone, you know, how it listens in on your conversations, and it hears you talking about Taco Bell, but instead of giving you deals for Taco Bell, it sends you a promo for a local taco shop that's actually healthier. Another project named A Call to Men partners with schools, companies, and professional sports organizations to promote healthy masculinity. You know, like kindness, respect for others, understanding that men already have enough power in society and that maybe they should use it to help others who don't? Question mark? Their strategy is to get men and boys to think more consciously about their collective socialization, think critically about how they might be reinforcing or passing on harmful beliefs, and challenge those beliefs in other men. It sounds like a no-brainer, but the manosphere's culture is very black and white. You're either with them or you're against them. So trying to get men out of the manosphere to sit down and talk with someone who isn't is like trying to herd cats. Ted Bunch, one of the co-founders of the project, mentioned to CNN, quote, "Part of the problem is these men don't listen to or respect the experiences of women, but they listen to each other. If men speak up, other men will respond to that, and we found that to be true." I originally planned this video to be more of a, haha, look at how dumb all this is, but after further research, this is all just a very serious side effect of the mental health crisis plaguing the world, especially the US. While there are definitely bad actors in the mix, most of these men are just confused, scared, and want some semblance of security and belonging. It's easy for some people to look at manosphere content and rhetoric and instantly know it's just smoke and mirrors, but there are people who will believe it and join it blindly. But maybe a more compassionate approach can turn the tide in this crisis, and the best tool for the job is knowledge. So I hope you leave here today with more knowledge on the matter, so that next time you come across one of these guys, you don't try to fight them, you try to help them.